And Sung Min, let me ask you, first of all, the CNN is reporting the president had been souring on Schein because the press coverage had not been getting better. Is that Schein's fault, or is it the fault of the person who is being covered, who is doing and saying a lot of things that are controversial?
Well, CNN's reporting does match up with our reporting on the matter. That was that the president had specifically brought him on to improve his media coverage. Clearly it hasn't, and he had partly blamed Bill Schein for that. But the problem here that we see in the White House over and over again is that, in terms of their messaging strategy, is that the communications director, at the end of the day, the real one is Donald Trump himself, and he sets the message. He throws the office, whatever they try to do, off message with his tweets, with his the impromptu gaggles that he has at different pool sprays and whatnot. And it's difficult for any press office to form a message around that. And he has gone through about half a dozen communications directors already. We're about halfway through his presidency, and that's not even and that is one critical vacancy, but there are so many other vacancies within the White House and in the administration right now, and that's really telling of the difficulty of working under this particular president.
Pamela, you're a White House correspondent as well. What's your experience with Mr. Schein? How did he try to shape coverage?
Well, my experience was he was there, as you pointed out, to be an attack dog for Trump against reporters and to try to, in some ways, bully reporters into better coverage. I mean, this was an experience I had, and it was a pattern of behavior. You know, he did it to Caitlin when he kicked her out of the Rose Garden event for questions she asked. I had my own experience just a few weeks ago with him after this exchange with the president in the Oval Office.
Mr. President, did you talk to your intelligence chiefs today about the displeasure you had with their testimony?
I did, and they said that they were totally misquoted and they were totally, it was taken out of context. So what I do is I'd suggest that you call them. They said it was fake news, so which frankly didn't surprise me.
We just ran exactly what they said to Congress.
Excuse me. It didn't surprise me at all.
So he took issue.
He took issue. So he brought me into his office and told me that I was a nice person, but that I was totally out of line and rude in that exchange with the president. First, he went after the questions I asked and said they were completely inappropriate. And when I pushed back and said, I just asked if he expressed his displeasure with his intel chiefs after he tweeted they should go back to school. And then he said something ridiculous in that they were misquoted, but we just played what they said in an open hearing. He then shifted to, well, my tone was really rude and my tone was really inappropriate. And then he went on to say that the president is one of the bravest people he knows, but that he is the president, we should be nicer to him. Now, one of the things, just sitting in his office, it was kind of a surreal experience and remarkable to think this is the White House communications director, and does he understand the role of the media covering the president, the most powerful person in the world? My job isn't to be nice or mean, it's to cover the White House fairly, accurately, and to ask tough questions. And so that was my experience.
So in Schein's defense, we should note that we're just over 2 years into Trump's presidency, and President Trump has gone through a lot of communications directors. There was Sean Spicer, Mike Dubke, Anthony Scaramucci, Hope Hicks. I think Spicer was back in the role at one point in there somewhere. Now we have Bill Schein. At some point, you have to ask, is the problem the advertising or is the problem the dog food?
Right. You know, the Washington Capitals are getting really good press lately. They won 5 in a row. That's why. They won the Stanley Cup last year. That's why. If he performs well, he'll get good press. And it's always the case. By the way, I used to work in the White House, and I used to tell President Clinton, we said, we have a communications problem. I said, the Titanic didn't have a communications problem. It had an iceberg problem. The Trump presidency has an iceberg problem. It's not, he can run through 6 more communications director. He has to do a better job as president, and he'll get better press then.
I should note that I did see efforts of Bill Schein behind the scenes trying to improve relations with CNN on a personal level. So I did see efforts of that, maybe not with frontline reporters like yourself, but at some point, you have to wonder. And look, you're somebody that worked in communications. I know everybody always wants to blame the communications department, right? That's all. We have a communications problem. I remember this during the Obama years. We have a communications problem. We have a communications problem. That's not the problem. The problem is the Obamacare website doesn't work. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we spend so much time talking about how Donald Trump is an atypical politician. In this way, he's very typical. Every politician that any campaign person or congressional staffers work for always blames the communications director. And Lord help you when they start talking about getting a Manhattan, Madison Avenue firm to come help, which has probably happened in this White House as well. But then Trump has the problem of who's going to accept this job now? Given that, I think Paul Kane, your colleague from the Post, tweeted today that the White House communications director is a bit like being the drummer in Spinal Tap. Eventually, you're going to spontaneously combust. And after you've seen the churning of staff that's gone through, it's going to be difficult for them to fill this role.
And also just to say, too, just to kind of round out my experience, I had limited interactions with him because I was away on maternity leave when he came on board, but it really was an impossible job. I mean, he was tasked by the president to shape the coverage and make it better for him. I mean, and like you pointed out, who's responsible for negative coverage? Is it the president himself, or is it the communications director? The communications director can't control the president and his tweets and things that sometimes bring on that negative coverage. So it was an impossible job, and we joke that job is cursed, right? I mean, no one can seem to hang on to it very long or do an effective job in the president's eyes.
So he's joining the campaign. He's going to be advisor to the Trump reelection campaign. The New York Times is reporting that that's more of a face-saving announcement than it is a real one. What do you know about that? What do you know about who might be next in line to take on this job?
Well, that is still something that we're reporting at, particularly the one who will replace him. But this is also what we have a pattern, an issue that we have seen with the White House. Again, you know, there is a departure, whether, you know, it could be abrupt like this one or another one, but there is no person to take over in that role. I think another very prominent recent example of this was when John Kelly was on his way out at the end of last year. You saw a lot of public trial balloons for different potential chiefs of staff that just go pop pretty quickly, such as Chris Christie and others. And finally, they put Mulvaney there as the acting chief of staff. And that's what happens time and time again. Someone leaves, there's no one to replace him. We are still waiting for a successor to James Mattis, who resigned from his position late last year as well. And that is, again, these critical positions that are not getting filled at this time.
Yeah, they have acting Secretary of Defense, acting Chief of Staff, but no one permanent.